Hello, and welcome back to the Co-Treat. I'm Jonathan, your occupational therapy practitioner for today.
And hi, I'm Magnolia, your speech therapy practitioner for today.
Yay, we're back. Yeah, we did it.
We did. It was a little bit of a break.
A little bit. So, we typically... Listen, we are not filming these things on a bi-weekly basis or whatever.
No, life is busy for that.
Life is busy. And so we try to, sometimes we film 2 in a day, back to back. And then we don't do, in those days, we don't do anything for another few weeks.
Yeah, we procrastinate really hard.
It's not procrastination. We're just busy. Okay. You got a busy schedule with your job and your family and your church community and you got a lot going on. Yeah. And then I'm in
a lot.
Yeah. I don't know why. And also this just happened to be the year that I was like, okay, Jonathan, you're finally gonna have a social life.
Yeah. And you're a cat dad and a plant dad. I mean,
it's true. It's true. I'm just gonna tell you right now, people who don't have plants do not understand that having plants is actually a consideration. I've been considering if I want to move across the country or if I want to move somewhere, when I get done with school, where would I go? And literally one of my considerations is I don't know how to ship a plant. So I can't move too far away that I can't drive my plants because I'm I don't know how to ship a plant.
I feel like there's definitely ways.
There are. I mean, literally some of my plants came from Oregon.
Wow.
Or Washington or whatever, from this really cute little, it's called Peace, Love, and Happiness Club on Facebook. And it's this really cute little shop that is from, I don't know, like I said, Oregon or Washington or something. And they've got they've got great stuff, but they're super cute. But so, I mean, people ship plants from literally across the country because we're from Alabama.
This is such a tangent.
I know, such a tangent. I don't even know how I got on this, but it's my point is there's a lot to consider and they do take up time.
Yeah, this is why I don't have plants.
They do take up, and when I have to go to school on weekends or when I go on to visit a friend, my friends in Atlanta or whatever, my friend, singular friend in Atlanta, I have to make sure that my plants are watered the day of so that they're not going to need to be watered, and then it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So it's more work than people think.
Okay, yes.
But it's also doable. Please, if you want to do plants, they're so fun.
They are.
So do it. Go do it.
Okay, so anyway, we've been busy.
We've been busy.
But we definitely want to follow up on what we talked about last time.
Yes. We talked about, our last episode was the zones of regulation. Did
you just make them a song?
Yeah. Leah Kuypers, hit me up. I will be your personal musician. No.
Okay.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
No.
Wow. Hateful. Anyway.
It wasn't your best.
I was trying really hard, actually. Okay, I'm not a singer. But yeah, last time we talked about the zones of regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave it was a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot to be said about regulation in general.
Well, we really dove deep into just like you said, regulation, in its basics.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's really important to us and we wanted to make sure that everyone understood.
Yeah.
And it affects everyone.
Yes, it does.
And so that's what's really important. It's I feel like you need to understand how it affects you, how it affects your kids you're around, how it affects the people around you before you can even dive into what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And and this even still, we could literally have a whole separate podcast series on just regulation, regulatory strategies, different, how regulation changes as kids age, there's all different types of things, that could really, there's a lot to be said about regulation and its impact on people's ability to go through their day. And not just kids, kids, adults, teens, whoever, older adults, regulation is so important. Yeah. And it's really a big, actually, so funnily enough, I'm currently reading, as part of one of my assignments or one of my courses, we're reading, what is it called? Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a book about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And literally the things that I'm reading in this book, I'm these are all of the same things that I work with my kids on. basically. They're
And
basically
is it geared towards like adults, the book
it
you're
is
reading?
yeah, it's a whole book about like emotional intelligence and what that means and how it affects people's ability to be successful in their professional and personal lives, and like literally has statistics in there that are like how people with higher emotional intelligence have better, like they get paid more money on, like statistically they're more productive at work, they're more likely to like get promotions and be high performers.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are skills that are important for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
because the same skills that these people have that have high emotional intelligence, they are self-awareness, they're self-management. So responding to understanding how they're feeling is self-awareness, basically. Having like maintaining control and responding appropriately through those feelings, self-management, understanding how other people are feeling through social awareness, and then understanding how to manage relationships through this relationship management, which are all basically the same strategies. It's not the same strategies. There's nuances and differences, but a lot of it is very similar to like the types of things that we work with our kids on.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes it feel very relevant to all populations and all people.
Yeah.
Regulation is it's universally important. And I'm so glad that we live in the time in which people are really doing a lot of research and like discovery about how it affects people.
Yeah.
Because it really resonates with me about how like important it is.
Yeah. And people are talking about it more like openly.
Yeah.
Which is really important as well.
Very much. And it's everybody, and like everybody is.
Yeah.
It's not just like teachers are talking about it. OT people are talking about it. Speech people are talking about it. Like people are having this conversation about it. And nowadays, what's really cool is that I see on like my OT Facebook groups and stuff, there's a lot of OTs who are getting referrals from doctors solely for like regulatory challenges. Like the kiddos are struggling to engage in life because of their regulation needs.
Yeah.
And that's the primary concern.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting to me that like even doctors are recognizing, like their pediatricians and physicians are recognizing, oh, this is a major struggle for these people and they need support. And like seeking out those avenues for support.
You would be so proud. I was explaining occupational therapy to some high schoolers this week.
Okay.
So this has a point, I promise.
Yeah.
But we were talking about, occupations, breaking it down like we've talked about in our previous episode.
Are you talking about occupations or jobs?
Occupations.
Okay.
Yeah, like
cool.
Specifically talked about like what their occupations were, like as students. Some of them had jobs, what they like to do for their leisure. We talked about all of that stuff.
Oh my gosh,
I know,
get it, Magnolia.
I know. I was really proud. We didn't pull out the book or anything, but
that's fair.
we talked about like what kids' jobs were, play, of course. We went through all of it anyway. But the cool thing was, it was like explaining. We started with that, and then I kind of explained the occupational therapist kind of help with things that are like anything that gets in the way of them being able to participate in those activities.
Yeah.
And so like we were talking about like how sensory issues or emotional regulation, like those get in the way of people being able to participate.
Yeah.
And like I think it really made sense for them, like to think about it that way.
Sure.
Versus just being like, yeah, these are the things that OT work with. Like, like breaking it down a little bit really helped.
That just makes me so happy.
Like you could see it on their faces, like they understood. Like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, OT works with people with emotional and sensory difficulties. It's like, no, they work with people who, if it's getting in the way of their daily activities.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's the whole purpose. I mean, that makes me so proud. I'm like, get it.
Something.
Okay, can we just get a round of applause for Magnolia and her amazing ability to advocate for OT with these little chili runs?
It is so funny that
that was amazing.
One of the career like coaches came in there and she was like, oh, I've never heard it explained like that before. And I was like, yay.
I love that.
But I didn't even tell you about that the other day.
No, you didn't. That like makes my heart so happy because that's important. And like I love that you did it that way because
Mhm.
oftentimes people describe our professions just in general.
Mhm.
They describe our professions as like, well, OT works with hands or OT works with upper body or OT works on handwriting or OT works on sensory things. And
Yeah.
it's like, but no, that's not the point. Like our point is what's preventing you from participating or what's limiting your participation in these meaningful activities, these daily activities. And then similarly for speech, they're like, well, speech does fall in here. They teach you how to talk or
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But it's like, now, what are the barriers that are preventing you from engaging in your like
And that's how
meaningful communication?
That's how I like to do it because I'm often talking about all three disciplines when I'm talking about what we do. And so I like to talk about it, like break down the words like speech therapy, you know,
Mhm.
helping anyone, which with communication really is what that is.
Yeah.
Helping anyone communicate,
Yeah.
no matter what their barriers are. Occupation, participate in their occupations,
Yeah.
which we have to explain what occupations are, of course. And then
Mhm.
physical, being able to participate in any physical activities
Yeah.
that they want to participate in. So anyway, another tangent,
I
but
love that.
throwback to the last episode. Not last episode, but OT episode.
Yeah, that was
What is
that was
OT?
yeah, that was episode.
back and
I don't
listen to
know.
it.
It was like episode 4.
If you don't know what
Maybe.
we're talking about, go listen to it.
I mean, session 4 because our things are sessions because we're therapy professionals.
Okay, so back to
yeah. So what are we talking about
zones.
today?
I hope people remember what the zones are.
Yeah. Well, that was our last episode. So hopefully it's a little fresh.
I have a fun idea.
Okay, what's
We've
your
already gotten on lots of tangents, but let's
What's
do a
your-
quick little zone check-in.
a zone check-in?
Yeah,
Okay.
like with you.
Okay. So right now, currently, I'm kind of cusping.
Okay.
I'm on the cusp of like my green zone, feeling really happy and
Okay.
like really focused. Well, not really necessarily focused, obviously, but like feeling happy. But then also like in moving into that yellow zone of feeling excited, especially. Oh my gosh, I'm definitely feeling proud. I've got a lot of emotions happening right now, and that's okay.
That's fair.
I'm feeling proud because I'm like, oh my gosh, my friend Magnolia just did a great job explaining OT to people.
Thank
that was so
you.
fun. And then I'm also excited because you did such a great job. And then I love talking about this stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm in that green yellow space.
Yeah. I think it was very obvious that we both were like leaning into yellow for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like you could see it like us getting off subject.
Yeah.
But, I mean, no big deal.
Yeah. Distractible.
Yeah.
A little excited. But
Yeah.
that's okay.
Cool.
Because there is no such thing as a good zone or a bad zone,
Right.
a good emotion or a bad emotion.
Mm-hmm.
There is no bias.
Absolutely.
How are you feeling?
I feel the same. I was feeling okay. I was feeling a little blue coming in. I was very tired.
Well, we are also, normally we film this in the morning
Yeah.
on a day that we don't work, but we're filming this after work
Yeah.
on a Monday.
Yeah.
So,
So a little blue, but like with, I don't know, it's flexible right now, obviously.
yeah,
So
Pretty-
not like deep blue.
not deep blue.
Not deep blue.
It's not a, excuse me. I also have a residual cough. You may hear me cough here and there.
Yeah.
I had COVID like 4 weeks ago,
Mhm.
something, and I still have this awful cough. But so you're in like a sky blue, not
Yeah.
not a deep navy.
No. Yeah.
I got you.
Mm.
Okay, so if that doesn't make any sense to you, please go listen to our last episode
Yeah.
on the zones of regulation, part 1. I don't know if I've marked it as part 1, but it's
That's
part
okay.
1. This is going to be a part 2.
Absolutely.
So what we wanted to do today was kind of go through the zones of regulation kind of curriculum and just kind of hit the high points of what the curriculum looks like, how you can use it, and some specific strategies on different activities that you could do while your kid is moving through the curriculum or moving through the phases of regulatory development
Mhm.
to help support them in their needs and hopefully to like give some people ideas of what they can do. Because
Mhm.
often what I find in my own experience is because I've had the training and I am interested and passionate in learning and trying new things and like seeking out how to help kids in this area. But some of my coworkers are less confident in their ability to like support kids in that kind of way. And so oftentimes people, they ask, they're, you know, like, I'm not really sure what to do. I'm not really sure how to help them. Like, this is what they're doing right now. Like, this is what I'm observing from
Mhm.
them, but I don't really know what to do next. And, so hopefully this can be a resource for people get some ideas and get some jumping off points. And every kid's so unique and every kid's so different. So obviously it takes that, for us, that clinical reasoning, that therapeutic clinical reasoning to make adjustments as necessary. But also for parents or teachers or whoever who know the kids, they can make adjustments as they see fit, because you want it to be personalized to to the kid that you're serving, or the kid that you're caring for, whoever it is. So that's the plan, is to give some like practical application tips, and kind of a deeper understanding of, and this is just one curriculum. There are other curriculums out there, and there are other kind of ideas about regulation. So this is just one. It's just one that I have done the training for and I really enjoy and have experience using. So that's why we're talking about it. Yeah. I am not sponsored by the Zones of Regulation. This is a non-sponsored. Hopefully it doesn't get copyright flagged and Leah Kuipers doesn't come after me, because I love her. And
no, we're just sharing the information.
Yeah. Like, please, Leah Kuipers, if you want me to take it down, I promise I will. But I just know that I admire you a lot.
Yeah. Okay. And just remember, this can be used by any professionals.
Yeah.
And parents can use the stuff we're about to talk about. It's
created by an OT, but it was created by an OT who also has her master's in education. So it's created, I'm pretty sure that's right. And it was designed for a school system. Yeah. So it was designed to be used in schools by a multidisciplinary team with OT people, teachers, like paraprofessionals, support, like SPED teachers, different people. But then also it has such great applications for anybody. Like it's very adaptable for the home. It's very, as we will discuss, it's got so many components that make it very reasonable that even other disciplines like speech, for instance, there's no reason that they could not be doing these things as well.
Right.
And it very much, in my brain, falls right inside of the speech, in a lot of ways, falls right inside the speech scope of practice also.
And I'll try to add some of those insights as we go through this.
Yeah.
Some of my ideas.
Yeah. Okay, so do we just jump in?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Just jump in. So the Zones curriculum is broken up into 18 like individual lessons because it was developed for schools. So it is written out, the curriculum, it's a book. And like the book is separated into like 18 different lessons, very much like lesson plans, like what you would see as like a teacher would make.
Right.
Which makes sense because it was designed and developed with schools in mind. So it's developed in that kind of a system. And the very first lesson is all about creating some sort of a check-in station. So we talked in the last episode about what the 4 zones are: blue, green, yellow, and red. Blue being your zone of low energy, where your body has low energy. So that's you're sad, you're bored, you're sick, you're tired, you're hurt, those things. Your green being that kind of space of medium energy, where you've got enough to do what you got to do and not too much, that it becomes like that your focus is shifted or whatever. And so that's things like happy, proud, focused, calm, grateful, thankful, those kinds of things. And then yellow being your zone of high energy. So things like excited or frustrated or scared or annoyed, those types of things. Silly, my favorite. And then red being your zone of exploding energy, where your emotional state has gotten so big that you're really struggling to like maintain control over your body, your actions, your thoughts.
It bubbles on over.
It does. It just kind of erupts like a volcano. So those are things like frustrations moved into anger, sadness has moved into devastation, silliness has moved into like wild, just kind of wildness.
Yeah.
Or even excitement has moved into like elation or ecstatic, feeling ecstatic. And so it's all those other emotions just pushed to the extreme. And so the first lesson, the first mission of the zones is to develop some sort of a check-in station where you can just take a moment to consider, how am I feeling right now? And then just check in. So, for instance, oftentimes what's used is a poster. I have made several. I've made several to use at the clinic, at our sister clinics. I've made them for people to take home with them, to use in their homes. So in that case, it's just like a poster board, and we put a green zone, like with a green construction paper, a blue construction paper, yellow and red, and then have like Velcroed little visuals, which the zones comes with if you get the zones stuff. And you can look online. They have online materials at thezonesofregulation.com. And you can find these printable materials where it's just these pictures of their little cartoon kids who are feeling all of these different things. And you just cut them out and you put them in the respective zones. And oftentimes we use Velcro dots to kind of stick them on there. And then you have a little place where they can remove the dot and put it in the little space there's also with the zones printables, there is a little square that has, I'm feeling like I'm in my blank zone. So you can say what zone you're in, and I'm feeling like blank emotion.
Yeah.
And so then you put your emotion. So you can check in and be like, I'm feeling in my green zone, I'm feeling proud, or I'm in my red zone and I'm feeling angry.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, is you're just finding a space, making some sort of a system in which you can check in.
So like changing the environment first. We're kind of adding something in the environment that can be used for our child or ourselves.
Yeah.
One thing I love about this though is it's super customizable. So you can make it for your kid's preference. I know, like, looking online, I've seen some that are done based off of like other characters like the kids like.
Yeah, for sure.
And we'll talk more about things like that, but you can like make it super customizable.
Very much.
Pictures that the kids like or enjoy.
Yeah.
Stuff that would make it really interesting for them to like look at and engage with.
And you can do it different ways. Like I've seen some people, I've made posters, I've done buckets, like I've made little buckets and used colored popsicle sticks and like written for my kids who were older and maybe didn't want or need the pictures.
Yeah.
They understood the words. So these, were like preteen or early teenagers. They, would use like popsicle sticks and we'd write the emotions on them. So it felt a little bit more mature. And that's what made sense for that kid.
Yeah.
And then I've also seen people use like paper clips, not paper clips. What is it? Clothespins? Yeah. Like clothespins, and do a similar thing with like gluing the emotion, like the pictures of the emotions on the clothespins and like doing it some sort of a system that way.
Yeah. And you can make it really simple by using like buttons or just have the 4 colors out.
Yeah.
For kids who might get like visually overstimulated by all the other things, or like seeing the words might throw them off. So we can definitely like put it down to basics too.
Absolutely.
It's about like creating a space where you can do a check-in.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. It's just like coming in and doing, and it shouldn't take long to do a check-in. Check-ins are meant to be fast, and especially as kids get more comfortable and more confident and proficient with these kind of analyzing how they're feeling, it should be something that's done quickly. Yeah. And the idea with having a check-in station is that it's something that you do often. And so, for instance, with the advice that especially if we're making a poster or some sort of a check-in station with a kid, and it's best, you get more buy-in from the kids if they help make it and they help in the decision-making process. Yeah. Rather than just being like, oh, here's a pre-made board and like take it home with you and use it. If they can help you create it, that's why it's lesson 1, because you get more buy-in for for everything moving forward. Yeah. Is because then it's like, oh, like I have some ownership over this. And so my advice to parents, especially if I'm sending it home with them, is use this with everybody in the family and use it regularly. Make it a part of your routine. Okay. We're getting ready to go to school. We put it by the front door or whatever. Maybe we put it by our bathroom. Or we put it by our bedroom door or something in the hallway, somewhere that we can find it and see it. And so as we're going through our day, we check in when we leave the house to go to school. We check in when we come back from school. We check in before bedtime. we just like build it into the day, because the more times that kids have to practice thinking about how they're feeling, the more aware they're going to be in general, and the better off they're going to be recognizing how they're feeling, what's going on, why are they feeling that way, what happened, and then being able to eventually communicate that and utilize some sort of regulatory tools as necessary.
Yeah.
So building it into your day, building it into part of your routine. And you can do that in a clinic or in a classroom also.
Right.
So just building it into the kiddo's routine.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, once people get proficient with it, it's like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It takes no time
Absolutely.
to just check in. This is how I'm feeling right now, and then keep on moving.
Yeah. And while making that, we can meet lots of goals like following directions, multiple step directions,
For
all the
sure.
great things you would do with a craft or any activity like
For
that.
sure.
So it can definitely meet some good speech and OT goals while even like working on the activity
Absolutely.
itself.
Absolutely. And after you have a check-in station,
Mhm.
the zones really focuses on working on. So we talked a little bit about last episode / session. We talked about how regulation falls into the category of like social emotional skills,
Mhm.
and the zones recognizes the social component of emotional awareness and like developing those skills. So it really starts with understanding emotions through the lens of other people first.
Mhm.
Because when you talk about like the first lessons are geared towards, like there's one that's like Zones Bingo, which is really fun. It's it has its own, like the Zones has its own bingo cards that are these kids, the same pictures of these kids and feeling their different things. And you can do so many fun things with Zones Bingo. You can play bingo. You can ask the kids to imitate the faces so that so you can develop some awareness of like what these look like. You can ask them to like identify them, like which kid is feeling happy. I've done it many times with like, find me a kid that looks like they're happy. And the Zones Bingo gets really specific. It goes into like one kid is like the actual descriptors are like happy, comfortable, focused, proud, which in real life, those all kind of look similar.
Mhm.
And so it would be hard to distinguish that. And so like if I'm playing it with a kiddo who's, younger, I'm not going to ask them
Mhm.
proud or comfortable or relaxed necessarily. I'm just going to start with the basics. I'm going to start with proud. Not proud. Happy, angry, sad, scared. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
And leave it at those. How many was that? 5? Happy, angry, sad. Happy, angry, sad, scared.
We'll add tired.
And maybe
I see
tired.
tired pretty
Sure.
simply.
Yeah. So start with basics.
Mhm.
And then I might just ask them, I'll be like, hey, find me a kid that looks like they're happy. And if they can tell me, if they can find any kiddo that looks happy or looks like they're in their green zone, I'm like, great, this is awesome.
Right.
Or even they might find the kid that looks excited, and I'm like, or the kid that's labeled as excited. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Yes.
I get it.
Kind of based off of where their like vocabulary is.
Yeah,
at that
absolutely.
time.
Because I don't expect a 5-year-old to understand what devastated is.
Right.
Like at all. I don't expect a 6-year-old to understand what ecstatic is.
Right.
Or even, I don't necessarily expect a 7-year-old to understand what depressed means.
Right.
But so like really making it whatever makes sense for the kids. But then after that, there's a really fun activities you can do where you're also still looking at other people and you're learning about emotions through the lens of other people by like investigating movies, like their favorite TV shows or their favorite movies or their favorite books, their favorite comic books, whatever it is. You look at these things, you read their favorite book, you watch their favorite show, and you talk about the characters in the show or the book or whatever in their story, and you discuss their emotions.
Yeah.
What is happening in this story? Like, what's Superman feeling right now? Like, oh my goodness, Superman looks hurt.
Yeah.
Superman's crying. He looks like he's sad. Superman's excited. He looks, whatever it is. Superman looks angry, like his eyes are glowing red. His laser vision's coming out, whatever it is. And really investigating emotions through the lens of other people.
Right. So they learn from watching first, like
Yes.
watching and investigating.
Yes.
Much like we've talked about development and stuff
Yeah.
before. So this is just like any other type of development where it starts by watching, starting to investigate,
Yeah.
explore, things like that.
For sure. It's all very much following the developmental process, the
Mhm.
developmental sequence.
Yeah.
And so that's really exciting. So that
Yeah.
means, I mean, like recently, especially since Inside Out 2 came out, which I still have not seen,
I haven't either.
and I'm bummed.
It comes on Disney Plus soon.
Okay, good.
We'll catch up then.
Absolutely. But recently I have been using the Inside Out 2 trailer with kids to like talk about emotions and that kind of stuff, just because it's such a, like, Inside Out's just great. It's amazing. Love it. But I've used Inside Out. We've talked to like different people, different book characters. One of our coworkers is even telling me recently about, she was using Superman with a kid.
Mhm.
And so whatever it is, utilize that character, make it
Yeah.
and meaningful to them. And sometimes, and for the youngest kids, for some kids as they get older and their language skills develop and their
Mhm.
ability to understand like WH questions, as you guys call them.
Each question.
So answering questions like, what is so and so feeling? Why are they feeling that way? Blah, blah, blah. For those kids, you can ask those questions, the ones who have those language skills developed. But even for our younger kids who aren't there yet, you can still describe it. You can talk about it.
Mhm.
And so you can just tell them, you can give them the words. You're
Mhm.
feeding them the words. So if, Scooby-Doo, do people still watch Scooby-Doo?
Maybe.
Is that still a thing?
I have no clue.
SpongeBob?
Yeah, I think so.
What are modern TV shows?
Bluey.
Bluey. Okay, Bluey's a great example. Bluey's wonderful. Love Bluey. Okay, so talk about Bluey, and then you just describe what's happening.
Mhm.
So you describe to them, oh, Bluey's feeling sad right now. Bingo took her toy. Or,
Yeah.
Bluey's feeling really excited right now because Bingo is playing with her.
Yeah.
Or Bingo is feeling really sick right now.
Mhm. So you're modeling
her
that
tummy
language
hurts.
part for them.
Right. And you're describing what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And, excuse me. And one thing that's really important to add on to that is you're describing, at first you just describe the feelings, right? You
Mhm.
describe so-and-so is feeling happy, so-and-so is feeling sad, so-and-so is feeling excited, whatever. You just give them the emotional language. And in that same process, you're giving them the language to describe how you know.
Yeah.
How do you know that that's what they're feeling?
Yeah.
Because, for instance, I have had kids. I have one kid in mind, probably just because I saw him today. But he is an older kid and he's a teenager, and he couldn't tell you why.
Mhm.
Like, he could tell you so-and-so, this person's feeling happy, sad, excited, mad, scared, whatever. But he couldn't tell you how he knows.
Right.
He couldn't tell you, oh, I know they're happy because they're smiling, or they're sad and I know because they're crying, or they're angry and I know because they've got a fist out and they're about to sock somebody. Like,
Mhm.
he could not tell you that, but he understood what they were feeling. And the reason that's important is to understand these signals, these what we call body signals. Different people call them different things. Some people call them body signals. Some people call them body cues.
Social cues.
Some people
would be something we'd kind of talk about in speech world, at least.
Okay. But different people in
Mhm.
the world talk about them different ways, but they're all just physical reactions to emotion.
Right.
And that's important for us to pick up on for other people, both for our social awareness, our recognition of how other people are feeling,
Mhm.
but then also to turn that inward for us to recognize how we are feeling.
Yeah.
I am feeling angry, and I know that because my face is really scrunched up. I'm getting hot. My heart rate is increasing. I'm breathing heavier. I'm moving around more,
Yeah.
or I'm feeling really sad right now because my head is down. I'm looking at the ground. I don't want to, I'm trying to stay away from people. I'm making my body small.
Mhm.
Whatever it is.
So just so we can make sure we're following this. So kids or older kids, no matter what age, they can learn, how to understand why they feel those emotions or what emotions they're feeling,
Mhm.
And be able to describe that based off of how you've modeled that and explained that after they've watched all of those things
For sure.
as well.
And how you've modeled it in their life.
Right.
So that's why it's so important for the adults
Mm-hmm.
this is hard. This is a hard thing to do and a hard skill to learn, but it's important for the adults to have the humility to express how they're feeling to the kids. Because it's, they learn a lot from us talking about our own feelings. So if we are feeling particularly tired, it's okay to talk about it. Or if we're feeling particularly upset, if something happened and, you got hurt as the adult, or you got angry, or you got frustrated, or whatever in this situation, it's okay to express that in a way that you're not producing shame within the child, So for instance, if one of the kids, because sometimes these kiddos can be physical and they can have some physical reactions to things because they haven't figured out more healthy and productive ways to communicate how they're feeling. So if I do something that triggers one of my kids to get really angry really fast and they punch me in the face, then it is appropriate for me to maintain my own cool and maintain my own regulation, but then express to them like, hey, like, that made me really angry that you hit me, because people hitting me makes me angry. And this is what I'm doing to like regulate it.
Right.
This is what I'm doing to help myself maintain control in this moment.
Right.
And like, that's okay to express that. And similarly, it's also so important. This is not necessarily exactly the same, but I feel like it's important. And it's also cool to apologize to kids. That's actually really important.
Yeah.
So even if you do react in a way that maybe you didn't keep your regulation and a kid punched you and then you snapped at them because you were triggered, then it's important to then go back and apologize once you're in a regulated state and let them know like, hey, like in that moment, it made me really angry, but I got really angry because people hitting me makes me angry. And I responded by yelling at you. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. I will try not to do that again. But like having the humility to like express how you're feeling in that moment.
Okay.
Because they also learn from us.
Yeah.
So in this vein of learning through other people's experiences in this social environment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Definitely.
Okay. Anything to add on the social communication part of that?
No, yeah. I mean, I just do love how like it follows the appropriate like development. And so like that's one thing I think speechies, if you want to call them that, should like be jumping on this because that's exactly how language like develops. Like it's learned after modeling, it's learned after watching others, it's learned through those things. I mean, like if you picture like carrying a newborn baby around your house, like we tell parents all the time, talk to your baby, tell them all the things, teach them the words, tell them how things work, tell them what you're doing. And like, that's kind of what you're explaining here, but talking about emotions and stuff. Yeah. And I think in the speech world, we kind of wait and we work on social pragmatic skills way later. And so we miss that point where we could be stepping in to help learn these developmental words for like emotions and stuff in that early development. Yeah. Instead of waiting till when it's like really hard to learn new words and learn new meanings. So like understanding these emotional concepts, I think are really important, especially earlier development. So I wish that we could like jump on a little bit more.
I agree.
So
like hardcore, I agree. And I mean, because one thing that the Zones is also very interested in, as I'm hoping that people can tell, is it's very much involved in your ability to understand how you're feeling, which is what we've been talking about, but then communicate it. Yeah. Communicate how you're feeling. That's what this check-in is all about, right? That's what the very first lesson is, developing this check-in system so that you can have immediate access to a way to communicate how you're feeling.
Right. And so I do love that. Like, you're not going to like we're not going to go through all these lessons without giving them an opportunity to express themselves.
Yeah.
So I do love that.
And it's so important because even just a kiddo's ability to communicate how they're feeling in a way that is understandable to the people around them changes their world.
It really does.
It changes their world. Like we have so many kids who like when they develop the ability to just like tell somebody, I'm angry or I'm sad or I'm scared, it has like shifted their whole world because suddenly, oh, like now I understand how you're feeling. I understand this response. And now I as the adult, can make adjustments and can like try to support you in that.
Right.
So it's so important.
But kids just they're not going to just learn that vocabulary.
Right.
Or like, they're not going to notice when people are scared without going through all the steps of development.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to add on top of it, because I was talking about having the humility to like express how you're feeling to kids. I feel like, especially in, once upon a time in older generations, it was much less socially appropriate to like communicate your feelings to children. I think it came from a space of, I think it came from a good place where, we're trying to protect our kids from the challenges of life. We're trying to like, demonstrate that we're strong and capable. And if I show them that I'm having trouble, then it might make them feel less safe because they're like, oh, my parents aren't in a good spot or whatever. And I totally get that. And I'm not saying like trauma dump all of your stuff onto your kids. That's not what I'm saying. Because that's also not healthy.
Right.
It's not healthy for you as the parent. Like hopefully you can find some safer outlets to do that. But, so I'm not saying like go out and just like spew all of your dark secrets to your kids, but finding a balance of sharing how you're feeling in a healthy and safe way to your kids without oversharing all of the like extreme challenges that we face as adults.
Like with appropriate dosage of it. I mean, like you're not going to like show the movie to like teach them scared. Right. Like that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to watch some episodes of a preferred show like Bluey. Yeah. And if someone gets scared, like, oh, look. Yeah. Bluey's scared. Yeah. Like she turned away. Like.
For sure.
It's keeping it at the kids level.
Yeah, for sure. So that's important. Yeah, I think.
Definitely.
So then once we go through those stages of our kiddos now able to like recognize emotions pretty consistently within other people, then it really focuses on recognizing those emotions within ourselves and recognizing, and I mean, and these are kind of, it goes through the lessons, but you can intersperse these things as you see fit. Because typically I'm not going through each single lesson, like we're going to do lesson 1 and then lesson 2. Like oftentimes I'm kind of blending things together based on my own clinical reasoning. Yeah. But then it shifts into this understanding yourself, understanding these emotions within yourself, recognizing these things that you're seeing in other people. Oh, Bluey's, her eyes are closed super tight and she's shaking and she's like crouched on the ground. She's scared. I do that when I'm scared too. Whatever, when I'm at home, it's nighttime and I wake up in the middle of the night. I do that too because I'm really scared. Right. I'm scared of the dark or whatever. So then you start recognizing those things within yourself. And there's one activity that I just love. I love this activity and the kids have so much fun. It's called the Me and My Zones activity. It's a lesson. It's lesson 6 of the Zones curriculum. But I love this activity so much because it asks the kiddos to use their artistic prowess to draw a picture of themselves in each of the zones. Yeah. And it's so fun to see what the kids come up with. I've talked about it before on the podcast. I think maybe as some therapy wins of the week, maybe, and maybe a little bit last session too, but it's such a fun activity because it asks the kids to draw, like I said, they draw a picture of themselves in their different zones. And I've had such interesting drawings from the kids doing this. And so like some kids, like one kiddo in her red zone, she had smoke coming from her ears and like flames coming out the top of her head, and she had her fists were balled up, and she had a like strained look on her face, and her eyebrows were down, and similar things for like Blue, you know, crying with Blue, and you know, happy or silly, you know, maybe silly had a like the eyeballs were looking in different directions, and they had a tongue sticking out, and you know, these goofy faces. And it's such a fun activity, and the kids have all really enjoyed it. And then it takes that, and then you analyze it, and you're like, "Oh, got a cough." Sorry. The tragedy. My gracious. I'm ready for this to go away. Okay. Coming back. But, and it gives you the opportunity to really describe it. You know, how do you, what in this picture lets me know that you're in your red zone right now, or that you're in your green zone? Oh, your eyes are open and you're smiling, and your head, like your body looks relaxed in this picture.
Yeah. So many good descriptive words.
It's so amazing. It's so amazing. And so it's so fun. So you're really talking about me. You're really talking about yourself. How am I feeling in this? Like, how am I feeling with all the different emotions? And then it goes into it has some strategies and some activities to really track your emotions and track how you're feeling throughout the day. It actually has like an emotions tracker, as one of the kind of printable, looks kind of like a calendar or like a schedule. And you like track how you're feeling across the day. You can start with just a week. Like today, mostly I felt happier. You know, mostly I felt in my blue zone, or mostly I felt in my yellow zone, or whatever. I felt in my red zone a lot today. So you can track it that way at first. And then as they get more competent and more, like proficient, then you can track it like, okay, in the morning, I felt blue because I was tired. And then I got to school and I was feeling yellow because I was excited to see my friends. And then it got to lunchtime and I was feeling green because I ate. And then, you know, we came home from school and I was in my red zone because my sister like took my toy and she, you know, or she got the remote and she hogged the TV and, you know, whatever.
And it gives them lots of like practice.
Yes.
Lots of repetition.
Yes. And you're practicing those things throughout the day.
Okay.
And then it gets into the lessons about triggers. Okay. And so we're talking about how I'm feeling throughout the day. So it's really just, what am I feeling? And then after you've really established a good foundation of what are emotions, how am I feeling? How do I know? What are all those body signals? Then we get into, so we've answered the what question. We've answered the how question. Now we're answering the why question.
Okay.
Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
What has caused me to feel this way? Why has my emotional state shifted? So then you really start talking about triggers, and it has some really cool, I love the triggers section of the zones because it gives you some activities, some strategies, and some things to do that talk about identifying triggers. And so and triggers you can talk about in a lot of different ways. Different people talk about them differently. The zones talks about basically any event that changes your emotional state is a trigger.
Okay.
So I can be triggered into happiness. I can be triggered into happiness by someone giving me a compliment. I can be triggered into sad by hearing a sad song.
Yeah.
I can be triggered into excited by getting a good grade. I can be triggered into angry by kicking something, like stubbing my toe. I can be triggered by all these different things. So you really start to investigate all these different triggers.
It's like why you feel all the different emotions.
Yeah. And those are really fun. Those can be really fun exercises to do, because again, we can talk about triggers through the lens of other people. We can talk about our favorite superhero or our favorite TV character. Bluey's sad, SpongeBob is angry, whatever. Why? What happened that made them feel that way? And
so great.
So we can start that way, you know.
Speech people, these are more WH questions and inferencing questions.
Absolutely.
Continue.
We analyze
sequencing questions. Absolutely. So many questions.
For sure. We like to analyze scenarios. We talk about during, like, especially our kids that can kind of have more conversational, and they can kind of sustain attention and have those kind of more conversational
Yeah.
interventions, we may just talk about like what happened today, and math class was hard and I got really frustrated. Why did you get really frustrated? Because we were working on fractions and I just am having a really hard time understanding how to do fractions, and my teacher doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've heard. That's a real life example. And I'm like, okay, good. Like, it's good that we have recognized the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard for you, so that's frustrating. It's also, you feel frustrated because you feel like your teacher's not available to help you. That is the trigger.
We're piecing the puzzle together here.
Right. And so you can do it kind of conversationally. You can do some like situational analysis. You can do it through these kinds of investigations of their favorite TV shows or book characters or whatever. And then, and you can also do this like just in play, like for some of the younger kids, especially the ones who are highly in that imaginative space, you can really just go for it. Like, make up a scene, play a pirate game, play a fairy game, play a superhero game, do whatever. And like, talk about, in this game, something happened. The bad guy like stole your treasure. And so now, I'm so frustrated because he stole our treasure. And like, that just really ticked me off.
Right.
And I gotta go take him down. And then you get the treasure and like, oh yeah, like we got the treasure, we won. So that made me feel really excited that we won. You know, they're talking about it kind of in that kind of very play-based state also. So they're very like translatable skills.
Like, you could also do it like, you know, like after like some reading comprehension, like read a story with our older kids and then answer the questions like what happened.
Yeah.
You could do them with our social stories that we use a lot with older kids.
For sure.
And then for younger kids, like a big speech goal is like working on kids' narratives, like their ability to tell a story. And so that would be a really great time to like kind of work on that as well. This stuff. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what comes next?
And then it's only after that the zones really pushes into tools.
Okay.
You can implement, it actually has like, it actually has a caveat, you know, as far as like the numbers go, tools come next. But there is a caveat to like introduce them sooner.
Okay.
But the idea is oftentimes what people want is that's all they care about.
We want solutions.
Yes. All people often care about is like, what are the tools that they need? Like, what are the regulatory tools? What are the toys or the strategies or the whatever that can help them calm down? And it's like, well, first, they have to have all of this base information.
Right.
They need to understand how they're feeling, why they're feeling that way, what's going on, before they themselves can use the tools independently.
Right.
Because if you don't understand why you even need a tool, if you don't understand if you need a tool, then there is zero chance that you're going to actively use a tool on purpose.
Right.
On your own, independently.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't compute, you know? So a kiddo has to understand all these things before they can use a tool independently. That doesn't mean that you can't introduce tools sooner, but it's much more in a co-regulatory space than it is an independent use of these regulatory tools and strategies.
Yeah. It's not going to be like in their toolbox yet for them to use.
It's going to be most often initiated by the adult or the support person in the situation. So you can introduce these ways like sooner, but it's at this point that the zones really pushes into it really hard about them using them independently themselves. And so there's all kinds of different tools that the zones talks about. They have like these physical tools that are very movement based and very much, if you're in the OT world, or they're very sensory based with like vestibular proprioception and like deep pressure kind of strategies. So really just getting a lot of movement and feeling throughout our body to help us be more grounded and be more mindful of the situation. There are some that are more they're more cognitive.
Yeah.
They're like, oh gosh, you okay?
Yeah, Ajax bit me. It's fine.
Ajax, he's a villain. He's a villain.
Yeah, there's like the mindfulness,
Yeah.
cognitive, like talk about it.
There's a lot of mindfulness strategies that are about grounding. There's the metacognitive strategies, which are talking about, which metacognition is just like your ability to think about thinking. So it's really considering, it's like analyzing the situation, analyzing how you felt, analyzing what you could do differently, analyzing how you could adapt the situation or alter the situation in the future, analyzing what worked and what didn't work and trying to make adjustments accordingly.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of communication strategies.
There are.
Which some of them, my favorite one, it is my favorite strategy in the whole world. Ask for help. Ask for help. I cannot tell you how many kids I have worked with, not even with the zones, but just like kids in general that I have worked with, that once they had the ability to request help, it like changed the way that they interact with people.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, one of our friends, he was one of the very first kids that when I started working where we work now, he was one of the very first ones that became my kiddo. And it was like, became my mission to be like, I am going to help you, because he was a kid who had a lot of regulatory challenges, a lot of regulatory challenges. And he did not communicate, verbally with words. His communication was almost all, physical communication. And he often was dysregulated because he just didn't have the ability to like advocate for his needs, to request what he wanted. And plus there was some other things going on, but so that was really hard for him. And I remember the day, I don't know the date, but I remember this very vividly. The first day that he learned how to sign help, like ASL sign help, he was we had been practicing, and I had been modeling it a lot. I'd been creating opportunities for him to struggle in the activities that he really liked. Like he picked it, he really enjoyed it, because that was one thing that was really hard for him. He would pick a game and he would be really interested in it, and he'd be really trying really hard, and then he'd get to something that was really challenging. And that would be really hard for him to handle, because he didn't know what to do in that situation. And I remember the day that he learned how to sign for help, he was laying on his back. We were trying to like leave. It was on our way out. We were trying to leave, and he was trying to put his shoe on, and he could not put his shoe on. And I was allowing him to struggle with it so that he can, one, through the motor learning theory of like, as you try and you fail, then you make adjustments and you try again and you fail, so that he can try to learn how to put a shoe on by himself. But then also to like challenge this social emotional component of like, and I'm modeling instead of intervening. I'm watching him and I'm modeling. I'm asking him, like,
you're like providing those communication attempts too.
Yes, absolutely. And so like, I'm asking him if he needs help, and I'm modeling do you need help? And he was beginning to move from that state of like, oh, I'm trying really hard, to, oh, I'm getting really frustrated with the situation. And something clicked, something about that day. We'd been practicing this for weeks, but something about that day, something clicked, and it made sense, because we'd also been practicing it earlier in the session. Something made sense to him, and he stopped, he looked at me, and he signed help. And I was like, yes, I am here. And immediately dove in to like help him. And from that day on, if he had other situations like that come up, all I had to do was ask him, what do you need right now? And he would sign help in those challenging situations like that. And so suddenly he knew how to handle the situation. And so it became so much less overwhelming and scary
Yeah.
because he had a solution.
Mm-hmm.
And the strategy was just him reaching out to someone else who could help him resolve the situation.
Yeah. He had that tool now.
He had the tool.
Mm-hmm.
It was magical, and I cried that day. I sure did. I cried that day because it made me so proud. Like I was so proud of him, and it had like it really changed his whole world. And that was really the first thing that he like. I think it was one of the first things that he really intentionally communicated.
Mm-hmm.
Is one of his first words, like his first spoken words,
Yeah.
that he was really able to communicate very plainly.
Right.
Which was really exciting because I was like, this is such a foundational concept for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed so much for us.
Yeah.
It really changed so much. So there's those communication tools too, where it's like just being able to communicate your needs, communicate how you're feeling, communicate the situation.
Right.
Is so important.
And I think what's important in that is like, don't just assume the kid would know that tool is an option. Because like I think that's a very basic tool that we're like, of course they knew they could just ask for help. Like obviously, like I'm here to give them like my specialized like skilled tools. Like no, like that was a barrier for him, and you helped like open up his world because of that. And so like you can't just assume that the kids feel able to do all the tools like we would expect, I guess. And like I think we all can feel that way. Like we get overwhelmed into moments, and you forget like that you could just do the most simple thing.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It feels it. And this is something to keep in mind too, with even older kids, like even many of my older kids, I'm like, especially anybody who struggles with like mental health challenges, oftentimes what comes along with that is these feelings of isolation and these feelings of, feeling like other people don't understand what you're going through and other people don't really, maybe they don't care or they won't get it or whatever. And so people have a hard time self-advocating.
Right.
And so for many of my older kids, like we practice advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
Asking for help for the friend I was just describing, he was 3. Maybe.
I think so.
3 or 4. 3. He's around that age.
He hadn't started.
Yeah, he had
preschool yet.
No, he was I think he was 3. He was 3. So he was very young. But even my older kids, some of my kids that are 13, 12, 13, 14, they have a hard time asking for help. How many of us have a hard time asking for help?
I have a hard time.
We suffer in silence instead of just reaching out to someone, even if it's just someone very accessible to us, like our friend or our parent or our sibling or whoever. We struggle to ask for help. And so asking for help is such an important skill for everybody.
So we need to make sure like that is a tool that's in their toolbox if it's something they don't have.
Absolutely.
Already. One of my favorite tools on there, like, because we have like the tool cards that we use through the kit that we have in our clinics. And one of my favorites is building the fort, just because it's so much fun. One, I feel like it definitely like redirects like our brain's not thinking about some of this stuff, which is something I like. It's soothing for myself. I'm like, ooh, I would like that in my toolbox, because it's like I'm getting my mind off the thing that was bothering me, but I also get to feel productive and then make some like safe place for me to sit in.
Sure.
So it's just like, it's a good win for me.
Yeah.
And I've had a few kids that enjoy that tool as well.
I love it. I love that.
There's so many fun tools though.
There's a lot of really cool tools that they have created or that they've compiled. They didn't create them, but they compiled them and put them in with the kit, like the Zones kit. And they range from all kinds of stuff. One of them is just like taking a walk outside. Yeah. Like sometimes
laying your head on the desk.
Literally.
Is one.
One's called desk rest. And it's literally making fists with your hands, putting them on top of each other, and like laying your head on your forehead, like laying your forehead on your hands. Like they're not, people, I think, feel like, oh my God, they feel so overwhelmed by the situation. Oftentimes when the kids are feeling dysregulated, that they feel like there's some like big, fancy, magical cure. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. So there has to be some elaborate strategy to like pull them out of this. Yeah. But it's not. Like these are very simple. Almost all of them are incredibly simple. Until you get to like the metacognitive strategies, they are more high level, but those are not even designed unless you're a preteen or pre-adolescent kiddo, just because your brain's not there yet. Like your brain
Right.
development isn't there yet. But they're very simple strategies. And that makes sense
Mhm.
because your brain in those moments is already going 100 miles an hour. So it doesn't need to focus. It doesn't need to have this really complicated system,
Yeah.
this really complicated strategy or tool to think about in those moments.
Yeah.
So they're very simple.
Yeah. But I like how you explained it earlier of like these tools don't work just on their own. Like,
Yeah.
well, they could sometimes, but like it's best to have this foundation of like knowing the emotions,
Mhm.
knowing what your triggers are, all of those things,
Yes.
just because like you get that more depth and like I feel like the tools become more meaningful and like more doable, I guess,
Yeah.
too. Not just like some thing that you know might help, but you don't actually fully understand what's going on with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just kind of, it's tricky. But I do love it's also simple
Hmm.
for the fact like the practitioners should not feel scared to like use this
Yeah.
and like to walk through it with their patients,
Yeah.
Like there's no like secret spell, like you said, like not standing over them chanting like mindfulness stuff
Yeah.
over the kids to help them get out of their emotional dysregulation. Like it
Yeah.
is as simple as giving them these tools,
Hmm.
and they're very like patient specific, which is also
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And the last things that like the zones really works on once you introduce tools, and
Mhm.
tools take up a lot of time
Yeah.
because tools are important to like introduce the tools, practice them, like practice what they are, how to use them. And then it really goes into developing your own personalized toolkit. So tracking like these are the tools that I've tried. Some of them worked, some of them didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing out the ones that didn't work, keeping the ones that did, refining your list until you come up with a toolkit for tools for each of the zones,
Mm-hmm.
that can help you when you need them. Because also sometimes you don't need tools.
Right.
So recognizing that's also part of it is like recognizing when you need a tool, pulling it out when you need it, and then utilizing those specific tools that are personalized to you, because the things that are in my toolbox are not going to be the same things that are in yours.
Right.
And what's in yours is not going to be the same things that are in any of the kids that we've talked about today,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's different,
Yeah.
and everybody has, all of our brains work differently. All of our nervous systems are different. So the strategies that work for us are going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, I think I've talked about it before. One of my kids really liked the strategy of, like imagining being on vacation.
Mhm.
It's like, it's a metacognitive strategy to like pull yourself out of the situation right now and imagine yourself somewhere different, your favorite place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that doesn't work for me because I just have a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
Like I have a hard time imagining myself somewhere else and like it being real.
Yeah.
But they really like that strategy. And I was like, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And similarly, on the kind of opposite, I really enjoy, I have learned that I really enjoy like meditation, like guided meditation type things.
Yeah.
And that particular friend hated it. She did not like it.
Yeah.
And I know like I have another friend, an adult friend, who also hates it, because she has really bad anxiety. So when she has moments of like super stillness and quiet, like her brain just keeps going.
Yeah.
Like, run.
I feel like the opposite of like feeling like you're on vacation would be like those grounding exercises where like you're thinking about where you're at, what you feel.
For sure. And I really like those.
Mm-hmm.
And those were harder for her.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's fine. It's very personalized.
Yeah.
And so we aren't going to put those strategies in your toolbox if they're not going to make sense for you.
I love it.
And so then it like wraps everything up in this really nice bow of what are your personal tools?
Mm-hmm.
What are the strategies that you can use?
Mhm.
Because you're your own unique person.
Yeah.
So your strategies are going to be individual and unique.
Yeah.
So the zones really goes through this whole process in a way that is very understandable and I think approachable for me. And it has really made me consider like just the process in which kids, kind of the developmental sequence in which kids understand emotional awareness and understand their own regulation. Before Well, I do want to mention kind of specifically some of the strategies that are really useful. And I know we talked about it last time, I think, if I remember right, but I want to reiterate it. Breathing strategies are immensely helpful. I know people like talk about them all the time, all over the place. And sometimes I think it kind of comes across as like fancy schmancy, like hippy dippy hoopla, or whatever. But truly, the research is very clear that breathing strategies can be very effective and can be very helpful for kids from a very young age. From a very young age.
Yeah, I think we talked about some of the research on that in the last one about how even like modeled is beneficial.
Yeah. And so that's really cool. And that's something that you can start if you're a parent or if you're a clinician or whoever, if you're working with kids, if you're interacting with kids that are very young, less than 2, you can start practicing these breathing skills and these breathing strategies so that kids can kind of develop this understanding of their breath and having this breath control to help their bodies and their nervous systems come to a state of control. Excuse me. And to the state of regulation from the earliest stages possible.
I know I mentioned my daughter in the last episode, so I'm going to bring her up again because she's just, I feel like her emotional intelligence is just growing in front of me, and it can be frustrating sometimes, but it's also really cute. She's gotten here lately where whenever like a table of people get really loud, because I don't think she can fully tell when people are angry or they're just getting loud. So like if my family's eating and we all get a little loud, she'll like hold out both hands and go like, hush, breaths. And like tell people to take breaths.
She doesn't really know
how to do it, but we do practice her breaths a lot. It doesn't work all the time. I don't want to paint like a beautiful picture here. There are plenty of times where she is so dysregulated, she'll say no breaths. Because she's like refusing to do the breaths because she knows that's what I want from her. So there are bad times too, but just the understanding that she has already of like breathing is a part of this. Is I think super cool. Like it comes so early, or it can, like you just got to talk about it a lot, model it a lot. Have it a part of your day to life,
bring it into like your everyday practices. And that's really the big thing with when you're working with kids in general, if you can build things into your routine. This is not just with kids. This is also with adults. And I need help with this. In my personal life, if you can build things into your routine, then it becomes real and it becomes it's so much more accessible because it's just a part of what you do. And it doesn't feel like I have to dig through the files of my brain to access this information. It just is already there. It's in that forefront. It's right there in the beginning. And I appreciate what you said about how sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it's not helpful. And sometimes, no matter what you do, your kiddo is going to kick and scream and have these big emotional moments because they are just in such a state, and
they may even be smart enough to like refuse the thing that normally works for them. As like a defensive mechanism. Almost.
Absolutely. And that's okay. And that doesn't mean that the strategies are not effective. It doesn't mean that your kid is unable to learn the strategy, like is unable to grow and learn and develop safer and healthier ways to communicate and manage in those really hard moments. I guess what I'm saying is like stick in there. Is like stay the course and don't be so hard on yourself that like, oh my gosh, this isn't working, this isn't helpful, this like my kiddos, or have any sort of like feelings of shame that like your kid is defective or broken or whatever, like that's not what it means. These are hard skills to learn. They feel very simple to us as adults a lot of the time, but kids don't have them. And so it's very important to like recognize that like it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of time and a lot of care and understanding and compassion and self-compassion from the adults. Like give yourself a break and
Mhm.
like recognize that you're going to mess up and you're going to have moments that you're also dysregulated.
Yeah, you're going to have to practice these on
And
yourself.
and that's okay
Mhm.
because we're all struggling through our own situations and our own things. And I mean, having kids, I can't talk from experience,
I mean,
but
being a practitioner with kids.
I mean,
as
I
well.
genuinely cannot, like, I'm so astounded by like my coworkers who, and like teachers, like people who go out and work with kids all day long and then come back to come back to kids at home. Like, oh my goodness, like I'm so amazed by their, like the people's ability to manage, like the adults' ability to manage. So like give yourself a break and give yourself a little bit of grace in those situations. And one thing that I want to mention too is like the zones is not a crisis management system.
Right.
These are not necessarily going to be strategies that the idea for the zones is to help kids learn these skills so that they have fewer moments of crisis. But the strategies, it's not necessarily going to be super helpful for you to go into a kiddo who is in crisis and be like, okay, let's think about being on the beach.
Yeah.
You know, like that's may not be the most effective thing in that moment.
No, this is kind of like the things you have to already know beforehand.
So this is like building us up so that we can have these foundational skills so that we can recognize when we are meeting, like when we are faced with our triggers, so that we can intervene before we lose control.
Yeah.
And maybe we need to at some point talk about, you know, some more specific crisis management.
Yeah, like how to handle like more intense, like at the moment.
Because that's a different situation.
It is.
And
this is more also kind of too, like we talk about a toolkit, but it's also kind of like how you like pre-pack your like first aid kit, like before, like, you know, like it's a tool that I might have to use here in a little bit. Like for your basic first aid kit, like your Band-Aids, your scrapes, like your little things, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm ready for those because I know how to do those basic things.
Right.
And how to get out of those basic situations.
Yeah.
But it's also not going to help you if someone's like broken their leg. That's a much more different, like a bigger crisis that you have to get out of. So.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
And that's where we'll need to talk about the other stuff later.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that at a different time.
Well, speaking of kids, I need to go be a mom.
Yeah, I know. You got to go. Do you have a therapy win of the week before we?
You know, I'm just going to have my mom win of the week I'm just proud of my daughter. No, just the whole like taking her breaths and telling everybody else when to take breaths. It just makes me so proud.
I love that.
I'm just proud of her.
I think that's
and she'll like, she's figuring it all out. Like she loves to pretend to be scared and like she practices it and she sees it in the TV shows and like movies and she's like, you're scared. She's like, are you okay? Like she's just becoming such like an empathetic kid already. Like even if I look down, she's like, are you okay, mama? And I'm like, I'm okay. I'm okay.
How precious.
She's just becoming a sweet soul.
I love it.
So
I love
she's
it
always
so
been
much.
a sweet soul, but like she's just learning so much.
Yeah.
It's cool to see it firsthand.
That's precious.
Yeah.
Aw, that makes me so happy.
Can you give us your therapy win of the week?
My therapy win of the week. I had a kid recently who we have worked on some of these emotional regulation and emotional awareness strategies. And I got a report from his grandmother last week that he has been in school and doing really well. And he's been doing a really good job of advocating his needs with his teachers and letting them know when he needs a break and he needs some space.
Love it.
Instead of, you know, having a big emotional outburst. He's able to tell them like, I'm having a moment. I need you to like give me a minute.
I love seeing kids advocate for themselves.
It's great.
So good.
I love it so much. And so that was really exciting to me when I heard her, when she was telling me like he's doing really great. And because he's these kids are precious kids. These kids are so stinking sweet. I just love them. And oftentimes these are the kids that get the bad rap because they're labeled as the bad kid or the
behavior kid.
Yeah. And I'm like, these kids they want love and they want to give love. They just struggle with understanding how.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they have a very special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I just love them so very much. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds so great.
So if you guys have your own therapy wins of the week, or if you guys have experience with the zones, or if you've never heard of the zones, or if you think that everything that I said was completely wrong and that we need to shut our podcast down, whatever.
Or if you just have your own win, you can have your own emotional win of the week. Of like,
Absolutely.
I handled my emotional dysregulation great this week.
Yeah, or if you didn't.
I mean, that's fine too.
Let us know. Just interact.
True.
Just send us a message. Someone send us a message. You can message us at the.co-treat on Instagram. Leave us a review, subscribe, follow.
I think you can leave a review like on some of the podcast things.
You can leave a review on Spotify.
Yeah.
And Apple. I don't know if it has words. I have no clue.
Just check us out. Share us with
Check
your
us
friends.
out. Share us. Yeah, share us with your friends. Let us know what you guys want to hear next.
Mhm.
We're
always
open.
have ideas.
We always have ideas of our own, but we're also so open to like, if you guys have specific things that you want us to dig a little bit deeper into, or that you want us to get our opinions on something, let us know. Let us know.
Absolutely.
I'm excited. So
See you next week.
See ya whenever.
Yeah, I don't know why I said next week. See you next time.
Bye.